Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. With me, of course, is Jeremy Finestone. As you can see on your screen, we also have a very special guest this week. It is Chris Samsa. And he's Chris Samsa on X and, of course, sportofprowrestling.com. Chris, we're thrilled to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could set this up in March Madness of NJPW world.
It's a great time to talk about this because having you on the show, especially, this is such a time of transition for New Japan with major stars departing, new things happening. And we wanted to get another expert read on this just because there's just so many things swirling around and a lot of pretty intense feelings. Jeremy, as you watch the first couple of days now of the New Japan Cup or underneath our belt, we've had the anniversary show. What are your overall thoughts on the first two, and can we just say our thoughts and prayers are with you on your bracket?
I mean, the bracket's busted. It was the long shot. It was the moon shot, right? It was the call your shot. Hey,
you sold it so beautifully. I mean, you had the logic lined up. We were there for it. You sold it so well that you almost convinced me it was going to happen when I was watching the match.
So for everyone out there, I made a big argument that TJP could win this whole thing. And unfortunately, that has not worked out, but he had a great match. And I got that going for me.
You did have a good match. All right. So we're going to, of course, break down the first two nights of the New Japan Cup, which included the anniversary show of the Ottawa Gymnasium, which is a word I will manage to say. And then we will get to Cork and Hall after that. There have been a lot of extreme feelings about New Japan and its direction. And after New Beginning in Sapporo, we go into this cup tournament. Chris, from your perspective, we've talked about it too. We've been blue in the face over the last few weeks. What have been your feelings? What do you feel is out in the zeitgeist right now regarding New Japan and its direction after losing Ospreay, losing Okada, Tama Tonga? Looks like Alex Coughlin, which will go, we don't know. But and then just some of the controversial decisions that were made at Sapporo. What's your overall feeling on the direction? Just your gist of it.
I said it in a private chat. I think things are hot and cold. HOT, right? With a capital H and a capital T, as we like to acronymize House of Torture. So I think when you see a show that's full of House of Torture stuff, I think you know what the reaction's going to be, right? You know what the reaction's going to be on social media, within the pundits, within you guys, even probably to some extent. Some outlets less anti-HOT, some are not. But I think that's the driver, right? That's the driver of the discourse, right? I think, but there's a lot happening, right? There's a lot of things happening that seem out of the norm for New Japan, right? Like I've made this, pseudo career out of being able to make sense of New Japan booking, right? Like via statistics, via projections, via trends, right? All that. There's a window right here, and I just do this. I just throw it out the window. It's gone. Like none of it really makes a ton of sense. So if nothing else, I think the talent, there's still a bulk of talent there that they can put to good use. What's happening right now, I can't make sense of it. It feels like there's big picture decisions that I think I want them to make, but I don't know. I don't see a long game for a lot of these short-term decisions. So that's my kind of long way of saying I have no clue what's happening. And yeah, the exits don't help, right? I mean, like you used to be able to, in case of glass, call Okada, right? And right now it's sort of in case of glass, call Naito or let Naito run. Naito's the last in case of glass they have, or in case of emergency break glass they have left. So they need to make another one or two, right? So, and we're moving real slow. And I'm a bold decision guy in my life and in pro wrestling. I appreciate that, and I don't see any bold decisions being made right now. And you know, I guess there's bold decisions being made that are perceived negatively, like Riddle, Nemeth, you know, Kingston holding on to that strong title forever, all that type of stuff. Like those have not been perceived super positively, but I also think that that's the vocal, you know, it's the vocal half. I won't even call it a minority, but it is the vocal half of the audience. You know, what I will say is that I'm surprised that my bracket challenge, the Sport of Pro Wrestling New Japan Cup bracket challenge, I mean, we have 25% more interest in that bracket challenge than I ever have had before. And I felt like the product was cold and kind of out of the conversation, but I think people still want to love New Japan. So I think they're going to find a way. And I do think we'll cycle out of this at some point. But yeah, I mean, House of Torture is the primary negative driver of New Japan right now, I think, at least in the West. But I do think that there's a lot to pay attention to, at least, even if you're not pleased with the immediate booking that's right in front of us.
My issue with Sapporo was not so much the House of Torture stuff, which I mentioned I don't enjoy. I don't think New Japan does it all that well. There's a lot of stuff right in front of the referee, and not all of it makes sense and all that. But never minding all that, I understand the need to put heels over. I really do. I promise I do. I understand that you need heels in order for the baby faces to shine. What I didn't quite understand about Sapporo is similar to what you were talking about, the long game thing. I just think it is. I thought Show taking not so much Show being the champion, but Show taking the title off of Desperado in that spot was a poor decision, both creatively and financially. It just seems like you've lost. Ospreay was a babyface, no matter how much he sometimes tried to be. You hear the crowd, the Ospreay, they love him. They loved Okada. You know, Okada was on a plane above most and just about everyone else, not named Tetsuya, in that company. And losing both of them, I just thought, here you also have a chance to make another ace of the junior division. And so, you know, and I know that they can do it. He might win best of the Super Juniors and all that, but I just thought having him as a solid champion could make someone other than Hiromu a top guy out of that junior division. I just thought, you know, you've just got a long way to go with that. You know, that Desperado could be that second solid champion, and then you can use best of Super Juniors to get over somebody else, maybe Show. I don't really Show's a good wrestler. It's just, you know, like when you're in that House of Torture gimmick, you're not supposed to have great matches. That's not the point.
Show is committed to the House of Torture gimmick. That is damn sure.
They all are. You're seeing it with, but you know, and so again, it's not so much that it's like, man, there's some missed opportunities here to make baby faces people believe in. And the other thing about Umino, I was less upset about that one, although I still think he and Perry for the Never title is better for Windy City Riot than whatever they're going to do. But moving on from that, it's Umino. People keep saying that, well, it's a New Japan thing where the guy loses for a long time at the beginning of his career. And I'm like, guys, I got to say, he came back from excursion in April of 2022. It's been 2 years. Like, when is this guy going to win a big match? And it's just like, I just think you're hurting it a little bit. He could be that next babyface. You need baby faces that people believe in. And these little cut off at the knees thing to get House of Torture over, I'm not convinced House of Torture needs it. And I'm just like, I'm just thinking, well, why can't we make baby faces that the people believe in? Because that's what's going to do better for ticket sales long term, and which has been my
ticket sales are good.
They are.
Ticket sales are actually really good
with Naito on top. They are, yeah. And I mean, that's with Naito on top. They are, and you know that's one way. But remember, in Sapporo, the night that there wasn't a championship match with Tetsuya and Naito in the main event, they were down 2,000 people.
Sure. Yeah, but also,
so my point is, Naito is probably selling a lot of tickets, but that's
also,
what I worry about.
Did we lose Chris for a second?
We may have lost Chris for a moment.
Wait for it.
Let's see.
Hey,
there you
are.
There
hey, I don't know what happened.
That's right.
What I was saying was that the second night of the double shots, whenever they do those, are always the better sellers, except for when the Tokyo Dome was 2 nights and
Yeah.
the January 4th was just going to be the better selling night. So I think, but it's a fair assessment, right? But title match versus mid card title match, etc. Right? Like there's so much nuance there. What I will say about Show and that title change that felt so abrupt and immediate is that now I see the Best of Super Juniors schedule. And now I see that the Best of Super Juniors final is at Dominion, which means the championship match that comes out of Best of Super Juniors is not at Dominion, which to me opens up some sort of door, pun intended, to where is that title match going to be? And why would that title match occur some other time in June? And what's the story that's being told via the junior title with House of Torture and some newly found associations potentially? Right. I don't know. Right. I don't know anything. I'm trying to make ends meet here.
I kind of looked at it last week and thought, okay, Desperado never really got that journey towards the title. He was basically just like, he was part of Hiromu's story, and then he just kind of finished it off, and then he got the title as a result of kind of more Hiromu's story than his own, and then he got the title and immediately lost, and I'm like, I think they're trying to position Desperado as the face of this division, but they have to give him the uphill battle to climb, and so this title being out of reach going into the Best of Super Juniors and potentially beyond seemed like what I could read the tea leaves out of it, but I wasn't entirely sure because everything just seems so, there's no sense of urgency right now. Everything just seems like, okay, everything's okay. So we can just keep on going as we're going because everything's okay. And that sense of urgency that we all want of like, okay, you have stars, you need to make them bigger stars, and you are not doing that. That's where I get the hitch that maybe that's not the plan. But when I first read the tea leaves, it felt like Desperado was getting positioned for that, like that climb back to the babyface leader of the junior heavyweight division.
And but now I see Desperado palling around with Ishii,
right,
and making it look like that's going to be a alignment at least in one way or another. Yeah, and
right?
chaos is
no delineation.
Chaos is a mess. Hantai's still around, right? Like there's a lot of options there. So I have to wonder if that's I have to wonder if Desperado is headed to heavy.
Like, is that a pivot? Like, I would love to see it, but
yeah, I'm into it.
That why wasn't he in the cup? You know,
because you got to plant the seed, and they hadn't planted the seed yet.
I mean, yes.
G1 maybe that'd be sick, but or just a tag.
Be nice to have.
I don't know.
It would just be nice to have more than Hiromu Takahashi over in that junior division.
Well,
right
that's I've seen a lot of discussion about like ditch the junior division, and it's just
no.
Right,
No.
and then Best of Super Junior is going to happen, and everyone's going to talk about it being the best, cleanest division in wrestling.
You're excited if you were to do that, man.
Yeah, I mean, Best of Super Juniors is, bell to bell, one of the funnest tournaments of the year. I'm not of that belief, but I see it. I see it out there.
My point with Desperado, I made it on the show before, is that Hiromu has transcended that division. He actually might be the, in case of emergency, break glass when it comes to the juniors. You can always throw Hiromu back into that title picture and things. The thing is with him, he could, Desperado with a good run could be his Eddie Guerrero Black Tiger to Liger. He could be the Dynamite Kid to Sayama. That generational rival that Hiromu really doesn't have yet. And Desperado's close. Second of all, the crowd loves Desperado. I mean, you hear when his music plays, there's a little bit of a buzz in the crowd. They love him. And again, it's just a chance to make a baby face that the fans want to cheer for and want to believe in. And I'm really surprised that they didn't take that chance, because they basically had it. They could have done it, and they chose not to, which was a little puzzling to me.
Well, they could have done anything with Hiromu's title reign last year too. and that
Yeah.
They didn't do much.
Yeah.
Like,
It's been a mystery. It's been a mystery.
There's a lot of baffling, kind of odd, like it's so easy, right? Just
it's a
point from
lack
one
of
end to the other.
urgency.
Yeah. No, yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly it. So, and we're
Yeah,
seeing it
it's
in this tournament so far too, in the New Japan Cup.
Venk and
you're
Bjorn
like,
is saying,
okay, we could just keep doing what we're doing.
Venk in the series said, I love Desperado at historic crossover. Yeah, I mean, he's been good in a lot of things like that. That whole show was good. Let's see. And he also mentions AEW has signed all the Wrestle Kingdom 17 main eventers.
All 4 of them.
All of them. Yeah, and he can't believe that happened either. And Colin is here too. Hello, Colin. He says that Jack Perry versus Shooter was great. He liked it a little more than I did. But until we got to the House of Torture BS. Well, there you go. That's the example of what we've been talking about, is that it's so divisive. So should we start
I like
breaking
that
down
match as
Did
it
him?
stood. I
thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. But
obviously there's more to have. There's more to take from it. I think that they redo it in Chicago, blah, 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 right?
And that's what I'm saying. I think this one was don't do everything.
Yeah.
There's time down the road to do more stuff, which I felt the reason I thought it was good and not great wasn't because of a poor performance, but because I thought they were holding back, knowing there was a more prominent match for these two coming up. Maybe not.
I've
pulling
seen
out
Jack Perry wrestle in a small YMCA in Northern California. So watching him wrestle here, just like in a smaller arena, just walking in from the side and just doing his whole gig, and just watching where he was 8 years ago to now, I'm just like, this is pretty cool. I had a little bit of a affectation for that.
All right. Let's talk about this
All right,
one. So we had the anniversary show at the Oda Ward Gym. That was on Wednesday morning, very early Wednesday morning. Now, you mentioned that the attendance was good. It sure was. Let's talk like this. Oda Ward Gym, 3,008, and that's the most since New Year's Dash 2020, pre-pandemic. Pandemic was just about to clobber us. And so Naito on top definitely works. So and having show in that thing didn't turn people away. It is the anniversary show. I mean, it's already a big deal. And someone else brought up that a lot of people bought tickets thinking they were going to see Desperado there, but who knows? But yeah, but it was a really good crowd. It was a really good crowd at Oda Ward, and much bigger than what they'd drawn lately. And began with some prelims here. We had tags, preview tags mostly. United Empire. This is Great-O-Khan and Jeff Cobb over Tangaloa and Tomoaki Honma. Tour of the Islands finish on Honma. This was a preview of Tangaloa and Great-O-Khan more than anything else. So they tried to get those spots in. So yeah, only 3 minutes and 47 seconds. So not a whole lot to say about this one. It was just a very quick opener.
Yeah, it was heating up Tangaloa and Great-O-Khan for night 2, and we will get to that one.
After that, we had TMDK, which is made up of Mikey Nichols and Zack Sabre. So Shane Haste not on the tour, not in the tournament. They defeated the Gorillas of Destiny. That was El Fantasmo and Hikuleo in 824. So they defeated the NJPW Strong Tag Team Champions. This was a good match. And, of course, Zach, Mikey, and both Hikuleo and Fantasmo. You got 4 pretty good guys. And the Phantasmo flip sequence that he did is always a lot of fun, and in front of a big crowd it's even more fun. And it even ended with a nice counter where he did one of his, I believe it was the Cabrata, and ended up right in a triangle from Zach in one basic flowing move, which is pretty cool to see. The choke slam was also countered into a triangle from Zach. So Nichols ended up hitting Phantasmo with a clothesline, and then the Mikey bomb, which is his Blue Thunder bomb for the pin. So, this sets up a lot of things coming up here. Nichols is in the tournament. Zach's in the tournament. All these guys are in there, but also, of course, a possible title match for the NJPW Strong Tag Team belts down the road is definitely in play here.
Yeah, I
Chris,
think
any thoughts?
Yeah, if nothing else, I think TMDK may be the maybe not this particular tag team from TMDK, but it might be setting up those guys going for the strong tag titles. Tough to put much weight behind it though, because the strong tag titles don't exactly carry a lot of weight. So we'll see how the rest of the tournament pans out for both Hikuleo and El Fantasmo, I think. But whatever happens in the actual tournament matches will probably be more of a tell of what we're going to see probably at Windy City Riot, I would imagine, is what they're setting something up for. I mean, they do like to defend those strong titles mostly on the US shows, and that's going to be a relatively big one. So you'd think they'd want to get those guys out in front.
And with a lot of these first round matches, you're also setting things up. We got to fill out the card for Sakura Genesis too. So I mean, there are always going to be little things that come out of the NJ Cup that could just lead to a match at Sakura Genesis. They got to have a full card out of it. So
this is the perfect example of an undercard match that you can cherry pick on the New Japan World. This match completely over delivered, and it was probably the best second from the bottom match I've seen on a New Japan show in a really long time. Like it made me really optimistic about the rest of this card.
All right. After that, we had an 8-man. This was the Chaos team of Goto, Ishii, Desperado, and Bolton Oleg, defeating LIJ, Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, and Yota Tsuji. Desperado got the win on Bushi in this one. Tsuji has an LIJ football helmet now and pads to go with his number 16 jersey. So he's filling out that uniform little by little. He's getting that down pat. The helmet looked pretty good. Tsuji and Ishii was a great preview. Looking forward to that a lot. Anytime these guys are in there together, they like to go at each other, and I appreciate it. Oleg, of course, got his shine. He did the gut wrenches on Tsuji, who is not a small dude, not huge, but not a small dude, and he's incredibly strong. Desperado was a crucifix, like I mentioned, to win. And after that, they made a point of this, and not any small thing, a point that Desperado and Ishii chatted in the ring for a little while, went eye to eye, and then ended up shaking hands. And so, like Chris mentioned, possible some sort of alliance going on in the wake of what's left of Chaos. Goto also mentioned that he felt pressure from Okada to lead Chaos forward. So we're getting all the usual words about, how is this group going to move on from the champ there. I still call him the champ. He wasn't the champ, but he feels like he was.
I've got eyes on Bolton Oleg. And
yes.
And
do you
his, yeah, I think, I don't know. I feel like, listen, if he comes out for his match with Hikuleo in a singlet and not in his, black trunks and young boy gear, my eyes would be very wide for that match. So,
well, Jeremy's theory is that he is a future member of Bullet Club. That he's going to be the foreign brute in Bullet Club
because he's
basically
white.
The
new
Fale, basically, just the guy that the mountain you have to climb in Bullet Club is going to be Bolton. Is his thought? I don't know.
That was my theory. Is like he is the Bullet and Bullet Club coming forth with a lot of changes. That's my long term. Like I planted that
add
seed
anyone else to any of the Bullet Club subunits? I feel like they're full.
Well, we are missing a War Dog.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We're missing a War Dog right now.
Yeah,
it's that big turn that no one sees coming except like I said, it's one of those big long shot calls. Like I think he's going into Bullet Club and he is going to be that monster that just crushes people when he gets the opportunity, like a Batista.
I feel like they've got time to wait it out and have either Nakashima or Oscar take that. The guys who are on excursion right now.
Yeah,
I think because and Oleg is 31. He's not, the youngest dude. He didn't have to build his fitness, and he's lost one match, one singles match.
Think he's going on excursion?
I don't.
No,
I think. I mean, I don't know if it's now, but I think at some point he's just going to pop out and say, I'm here, right? And it's the Hikuleo match in the tournament's an odd place for it because Hikuleo is sort of at the same. He's in that same growth trajectory.
So I thought that was actually Tanahashi, and they put Bolton in there after Tanahashi couldn't go. That was my theory.
I don't know if they'd put him against Hikuleo in the first round.
I think they would. I think they
would. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's classic.
But that was I looked at it and I thought about Tanahashi not being available immediately after that last match. And I thought it's possible they put Bolton Oleg in there.
I don't think Tanahashi was ever in this tournament.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there goes that theory.
That's just my read on it. I don't think if he was, it was going to be one match. And I guess maybe here's the spot. But
That's what I'm saying. It's like
he was
if it's
just
a
about to
one-and-done-
elevate up from the TV title to the global title, and he already had his Sakura Genesis program. So it didn't make any
Hikuleo,
sense.
they love Hikuleo crushing.
I know, but it wouldn't have made any sense for him to be in this tournament for a
Yeah.
title shot at Sakura Genesis when they announced those things in conjunction. They announced those things at the same time.
Fair enough.
And they announced the tournament like right in the same. On the PR side of me is like, wait, how did we announce this?
There is this. They've already had Finley say he was going to go for the global title, and then after all was said and done, he's like, not only am I going after the global title, I am going to go after the IWGP.
I know, but the match was booked. The Sakura
Right.
Genesis match was booked, so I don't think Tanahashi was ever in this tournament.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But as far as Bolton goes, I mean, they're clearly treating him very differently than they treated any other real young Lions. He doesn't take the fall in matches, even when he's the only non-main roster guy in it. He doesn't take the fall. He wins far more than any young Lion usually wins. So this is a time when you can do something like a recruitment drive for him, where multiple groups are kind of talking to him a little bit, like maybe with us, maybe with us, that type of thing. You can do something like that. That can go through all summer if you want to. I mean, the story where does he go could be one of the more interesting things about 2024 in New Japan right now.
The story I'd want to book for Bolton and Hikuleo, though, is if it were anyone else but Hikuleo, Bolton would have won that match. But it was Hikuleo, and he couldn't get past him for whatever reason. But his performance was such and so dominant that Hikuleo barely gets out alive. But if it were anyone else, Bolton would have moved forward.
I also just don't know how long some of these guys are going to be around.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sure you all see it too. There's a lot of chatter about Hikuleo, Tangaloa, anyone who speaks English. Primarily there's chatter about, the length. There's a lot of week to weeks happening right now.
If the word of Tama Tonga going to WWE is true, and if he goes over there and becomes successful, then I'm really worried.
Totally.
Then the pipeline truly opens up.
But Oleg's so interesting because his only singles loss in New Japan is to Zack Sabre Jr. in a fill-in TV title match that went 13-38. I mean, like, they
treat him different.
He's treated differently. So I hope he doesn't go on excursion. Where does he go? Right?
Like,
what does he need to do? He may never be
a MLW. Like, what the hell?
Honestly, like that with Kojima and that group. Like, honestly, that could be fun. I would watch that. I think that's a great idea. I might plant that.
That was the only place I could think of that he.
Yeah.
Could
the rest of them don't make sense.
Because the other guys are already there.
Right.
Like, just keep it.
Yeah, TNA doesn't make sense. The others don't make sense. And really, I mean, even Kosei Fujita's barely gone. I mean, he's not gone very much considering he's supposed to be on excursion in Australia.
I mean, and Oi was in Noah. Like, we're clearly doing different things with these excursions right now. And to their credit, at least we're trying something different in that space.
Venkin mentions Tana is the president. He has other things to do than be on every card. So like rehab his ankle. Actually, he's injured. It's the only reason he's not on all these cards. He hurt himself. Dunstan, let's have a word for Dunstan here. Dunstan Williams. Life is killing me slowly. I just can't get invested in the company like before. Any Western company, with any Western company, can swoop in and take talent away. It's been frustrating, but this has happened before. We've had times when they've grabbed talent away from the Japanese companies before, and we've soldiered on. But we'll see what they do with it. I understand the frustration, though.
It's cyclical. I mean, and we're in a cycle where all. I mean,
AJ Nakamura, Carl Anderson, and one more. Who's Carl Anderson's tag partner? Sorry, all left at the same time, basically at the same time. I think they told Geto within 2 days of each other, all of them, which had to be a couple of 2 days for Geto that he'd like to forget.
But no one like Okada's ever left. So I can't downplay that. But based on what Tokyo Sports is reporting via someone close to Okada, like the man got a 40 times multiplier on his salary. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say that he shouldn't.
3 years, 2 billion yen.
2 billion
translate
yen is
what?
about $13+ million. I mean,
I mean,
it's
nobody
about
on this show said he shouldn't do it. Nobody.
No,
I mean,
no.
we all was like, we'd love to have him in New Japan, but if someone's offering you enough money to, and we talked about because his wife is an actress in Japan. You know, like if you can pay him enough to uproot everything and go over there, because if you can back up the Brinks truck for him, then I will never fault anyone for taking it. What these guys are putting their bodies through all the time, get every last dollar you can for that, because you know they should get every dollar they can get, and he did. And I'm glad he's getting paid. I'm sorry it's not in New Japan, but yeah, no, I never said he shouldn't take it.
I mean, that would have bled New Japan out, though. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like
Can't do it.
that's the thing. The economics are just so different, and
Yeah.
that's what we're gonna see right now. And when you know you probably were asked to take an actual yen pay cut, plus the yen doesn't spend the same in
About 30%.
outside of Japan.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tough to have guys stick around, but then you've got the young crew that's clearly passionate about New Japan. I mean, you've got Tsuji running his mouth. You've got Great Khan going into business for himself, holding up the belt like he's John Cusack and say anything. And
That's
you
what
know,
I
like
said. I thought it was that.
these guys are there is a group that wants to see this through. So I know that much, but I again, back to guys like Hikuleo and you know some of the English speakers, of course they're going to put the feelers out, and yes, it's going to be hard to find investment in that, but watch the growth, see what happens. The attendance is good. It's a matter of where they have to then spend their money, right? Like a guy like El Phantasmo or Hikuleo, they have to spend their money in North America to live, which means if they're only making money in yen and the yen doesn't convert the same and it's not as much as it used to be, yeah, we're going to have a tough ride. That's just dollars and literal dollars and cents.
Yeah. Economics aren't in our favor. Like I said, I went to Japan September of 2019. That was my trip and my pilgrimage over there. And I know that when I was over there, a yen was basically a penny conversion wise, very close to that. So it was, if something was 1,000 yen, $10, easy peasy. Now it's much different. It's like about 30% less
70,
over there, which means for New Japan, foreigners are 30% more if you're paying, you know, just to keep level, let alone if they want to raise or anything else. So that's an uphill battle, and that's something that they're going to have to deal with while the Japanese economy is like this. It's happened before. The Japanese economy has taken dives just like ours has, and everything else, and the companies over the years have lost foreigners who haven't wanted to come over, and that goes back to Baba and Inoki. And that they've worked their way through that, and I think New Japan's going to work their way through this. It's just a matter of who's going to be part of it. But like you said, there are people that are really into it and recognize the opportunity, right? I mean, there's a lot of prominent matches that need a new name in that Okada's not going to be in, that Ospreay's not going to be in. So there are a lot of people who want to take those spots. So.
More to talk about later, but we'll get back to this one right here.
Okay, so we'll move on to this one. So this is the United Empire. This is Callum Newman, TJP, and Francesco Akira against Geto, David Finlay, and Gabe Kidd. And you can look at who's in this match and know who lost it. Geto is usually in there to protect the crew and make sure that they don't have to be pinned. And when you can pin him instead, and that's exactly what happened. Double knees from TJP and Akira. But all of this is about getting ready for TJP and Finlay.
Yeah, and TJP and Finlay had already had a singles match this year, even. So, Jeremy, you were probably there, right?
Yeah, I went to that San Jose show. It was a great match, and it led me to think that there was actually more planned for TJP. So, good job by TJP out kicking your coverage on that one. But yeah, I was there for that one. But go ahead, Chris.
I think it's interesting that there's a bunch of units in New Japan without a leader now, right? You've got Chaos without a leader. You've got United Empire without a leader. Hantai's never really had a leader, but they could, right? I guess Tanahashi maybe.
Probably, yeah.
If you really had to flag one, but and then the heel units, the Bullet Club and House of Torture, like the units that are getting a lot of screen time, I guess, and getting a lot of attention, they're the ones that have a leader, right? You've got David Finlay, who's clearly going to go. I mean, the votes are in. David Finlay's going far in this tournament. And then you've got House of Torture, obviously, and they're kind of everywhere right now. And you've got LIJ, which is the clear face leaning, they're baby faces, right? And Naito. So, but you've got Naito on top, and then you've got 2 heel units with kind of established leaders, and everyone else is just kind of floundering. So, like, even is God part of Hantai? Who's their leader? Is it Jado? What's the story there? Tama was the kind of incumbent leader, and now you've got a bunch of guys that are sort of in the same slot. Like, there's so much fluidity to the leadership of the units that it's hard to see someone elevate up to that top tier. And that's, Jeremy, I don't think your pick of TJP was so crazy, because if they were gonna give United Empire a leader right now, it was gonna be TJP, and the only way to do that is to have him go through some big bosses.
Right. That was the backbone of the entire argument, was if they were going to have put a guy in a place, like sometimes they do, where they did with Shingo and Will Ospreay had to bow out years ago. They basically just put a guy in the spot that they already had established. I kind of thought they might look at TJP and his loyalty and say, hey, for now, you're the guy. And they may still have that plan, but I don't think that's the plan as of now.
Well, it's clear he's angling for it, whether that's shoot or not, I don't know. But
people are shooting their shots all over the place.
The shots are shot. The shots are being shot.
Because Okan has mentioned a couple of times in backstage, Great Okan's backstage comments are always fascinating. Because you never really know what he's going to say. And when he does, it's usually something pretty thoughtful and interesting. But he has made comments in the past that, like one of the reasons he joined United Empire is because, they didn't really have a leader. And I'm just like, boy, Ospreay sure looked like a leader. But he just said, going forward, that they would be a collective. And then, you had TJP angling for it. So, yeah, people are maneuvering in there. And like you said, Chris, I'm not sure if that's actually part of the script or if it's just they feel like that's what their character would say in backstage interviews or whatever. But it's a thing where you've got those 2 groups that just are a little bit rudderless right now. And we had some suppositions that there might be some movement where maybe Chaos doesn't come out of this as a group, but maybe some of the parts go, like Bishamon and Ishii go with Desperado and and maybe somebody else, and then that's a new group with a new guy up front or whatever. I mean, all that stuff could happen, and it could come out of either this tournament or Dominion or things. I think we'll have a better view of it by the time G1 starts, but right now it does seem to be like all the baby faces are just kind of wandering around looking at each other. So
the other thing to mention is that it got in about 3rd or 4th gear, and in the match tomorrow it'll have escalated. But Callum Newman and Gabe Kidd are electric with each other right now. Like, they are really heating up their feud, and it is something to watch when those 2 end up having their match. That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, and the good news is, too, Kidd, of course, had to miss time and miss that Shingo Takagi match in Rev Pro because of his injuries from the cage match they had in Osaka. He wrestled these last 2 days and looked okay. Now, he was in preview tags where you don't have to do a ton, but he looked fine in there. So that was some good news. I was glad to see that he was okay, because not everybody's okay from that. And Henare hasn't been seen since apparently rupturing an artery in that. Oh my God. Jeez.
That's way more serious than a lot of the stuff that we've been shown to be like gnarly. That is legitimately scary.
I knew that Henare thing was bad when they never even attempted to show him on camera once he went down. Like, if you watch that cage match, like, they did everything in the world they could to avoid having him on camera, because the doctor was reaching through the cage to tend to him, and they just did every trick in the book to make sure that the cameras were not on him when he was down right there, until he was wrapped up and then came back in. So that had to be pretty gnarly, I think, anyway. Let's see. We had an 8-man tag after that. This is just 5 guys and the House of Torture in there. This, of course, was Dick Togo was in there to do the job, and here functioning the same way that Geto did in the other match. So Uemura came out with a towel there and built the suspense by wearing that towel all the way to the ring. His hair is growing out a tiny little bit, but added a touch of red to it. Doesn't look too bad.
I think he looks good.
He got good
Oh,
reviews from
great.
my girlfriend. She was just like, "Oh, okay, well that's not so bad," because she was horrified that he had cut the mane off. She was horrified.
I was
But,
very sad too.
Yeah, she did
Took
too.
a pair of us.
I also
don't
like
know.
that. I also like that he did not play depressed in the match.
No.
Like he didn't act like he was a shell of his former self and just depressed. He seemed determined.
He
Like,
regrouped.
yeah. So this was good. He's reborn. He's determined to get back to the top. I like that attitude. And he hit the deadbolt suplex on Togo to win it. So thumbs up for me on that one, just for the presentation of Uemura.
I'm with you. I liked they were not shy about making the comparison to Naito over and over and over again, the Stardust comparison, which I mean it's hard to miss. So if people are not drawing their own conclusions, long time watchers from New Japan.
If they weren't, Chris Charlton pointed at it and shouted it. So
they were not shy at all.
As Chris Charlton does.
Gonna make sure you know that. We love Chris. I love Chris Charlton.
If there was one point to this entire match, it was Yuya Uemura, because if House of Torture were the stars of other parts of this show, in this match, they took a supporting role to spotlighting what was going on with Yuya.
All right. Well, there you go. Let's take a look at some of these comments here real quick. Dunstan mentions this, that the leader of every group is considered the top guy of their respective group. And that's a good point. And that's what we really don't know about Chaos or United Empire for that. I mean, on the surface, you would think, maybe Cobb, maybe Okan or something like that. Cobb doesn't seem like a guy that's going to lead a faction. So it's a little mysterious as to who's going to end up there.
In my mind, it's like that mob boss thing where in like TV shows, you have that one photo and then you have the lieutenants that all come underneath. It's like, you think about the one guy at the top, and in every faction, who's the guy at the top?
Yeah. That's a question. And Vankin says, when do we make Shingo a leader? Because he should be. Well, that's what I've been saying, doggone it, Vankin. That Shingo, maybe it's time for him to step away from the LIJ shadow and reform his own group, perhaps. That could be a way to do it. And Tyler Murren is here. He says, what's up, guys? Jack Perry and NJPW just feels fresh. We're about to get to that pretty soon. Doki still should have taken the haircut bullet. No, you leave that hair alone, Tyler, and bite your tongue for saying so. I don't think he was
ever in a hair. If we could air for 90 minutes just Doki commercials with him flashing his hair and call it an episode of Speaking Strong Style, I would 100% do it.
Oh, you wrote into the wrong show on that one, Tyler. I am in the tank for Doki. By God, I am. I lead the charge.
Doki to have a shirt versus shirt match.
Yeah,
we need to get that man showing some abs.
Exactly. He's got the best build on the roster.
Covering that up with a heel move, New Japan.
Time to bring up the New Japan
for the Heat.
Cup. Sorry, that tickled me. It's time to start the New Japan Cup 2024 with our next match. We had Toru Yano and Yujiro Takahashi. Now, this was only 2 minutes and 56 seconds here, but I'll tell you what. I had fun during this thing. So, first of all, Yujiro came out with Peter. Always great to see Peter back. He is 300% more interesting with her there, and it worked here too. Yujiro had a jump start, and he ended up handcuffed. This is all quick. He handcuffed Yano to the barrier outside. Yano managed to separate the rail in order to get the cuffs off. Then he also managed to get the cuffs off because he put him back on Yujiro. He grabbed the timekeeper, threw him into Yujiro. They hugged each other, trying to keep from crashing into each other too much. He then cuffed them into a hug, low blows Yujiro, and it was a countout. And, I thought about this as far as what this was in the middle of a show. This was almost like a little side piece to a wrestling show. But this is genuine burlesque. We've always been talked about how pro wrestling is like a form of burlesque theater. But think about this. We had a really good-looking girl doing a little sexy dance over here, then slapstick comedy from the guys. This was a burlesque show in the middle of this thing. It was like a little quick, fun burlesque show in the middle of a wrestling card. And I've always heard wrestling described as a form of burlesque theater, but this is the most literal interpretation of it I've ever seen.
Every now and then a Yano match, all I really ask of Yano matches is that they're creative.
Yeah.
And for a little while there, they were not. Like, it was just kind of the same shtick over and over again. Yano got super overexposed, especially through the pandemic. When he was on every show, and he can go every day as long as he can make the travel. Like, it's not like he's really putting a ton of body, work in. This one was fun, but I like it when he's in there with like another terrible, like goofy, creative heel guy, like those are always the match that people groan about this, when they see the bracket, they're like, oh my God, Yano and Yujiro at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, that's the one that you want. You don't want Yano versus, someone that you actually like. You want Yano against another shithead. And like, that's literally what we got here. And they both tried to, cop out early and make their way back into the ring. And what's a couple minutes of your life for that, right?
Yeah. And Yujiro is the kind you can make look like a buffoon. It doesn't hurt anything.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. This is exactly the kind of place to do it. Like you said, what would you rather have Yano do something, 3 minutes with comedy with Zach?
Yes, no, actually, because Zach's great.
Well, Zach, maybe,
wrong choice.
You know what? That's a wrong choice. You're right, because he is funny. He just he tries to make you think he's not, but he is, which makes him funnier.
Like trying to do a Toru Yano and evil comedy match, it gets old real quick.
There you go.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I was just trying to make a point of I'd rather have Zach have a good match than a match with Yano. But I guess what I'm saying, he probably would make that work. But this is the kind of thing to do this. So anyway, Toru Yano moves on in the cup. And Yujiro is left putting ice on his cup. And
I looked at the card and realized there were 9 matches, and there aren't usually 9 matches on the main card of a New Japan show. So I was like, this one isn't going to go long. And I thought 5 minutes, but I think it went shorter than that.
Yeah, so, just under 3. Yeah, just under 3.
It was brisk. It knew the assignment as a palate cleanser between the matches before and the matches after, and I was here for it.
After that, we had Yoshihashi and Kenta. And I'll tell you what, this is one that I had a lot of thoughts of after it was over. So Yoshihashi had not beaten Kenta in a singles match, so that was an alert right there. Kenta worked the match at the beginning, teasing that he'll use Yoshihashi's staff against it. He's always had those long looks at the staff there. Always been fascinated by it. Kenta works slow and methodical, but in this one, he got the psychology of this match just right. He did hit the drop kick in the corner and the double stomp off the top for 2. Yoshihashi got an inside cradle for a near fall at the 10-minute mark. And I'll tell you what, at that moment, that near fall, that little inside cradle after a couple of big moves from Kenta, they had the crowd. The crowd was right there with them at that point. And they made noise the rest of the match. It was a good crowd. No, they were into things. Kenta tried the GTS, but Yoshihashi turned in the crucifix bomb for a pin. And Kenta shook his hand at first and then hit him from behind, which worked. It hit all the right notes. This is all part of probably setting up an IWGP title match. I'll tell you, this is an example of Kenta cannot do the things he used to do physically. His body just will not let him anymore. But he can be a really smart worker. And I thought they actually got the most out of Kenta in this match than we've seen in a while. Sometimes Kenta matches can be a little slogs because he just can't physically do what he used to. I got to stop comparing it to the old Kenta matches and look at what he's able to do now. And I thought this was a pretty good way of bringing the crowd along, because that crowd was into Yoshihashi winning it by the end of it.
They're not the only one into Yoshihashi. Yoshihashi is low-key one of my favorite New Japan wrestlers. Like, he's a guy that went from, and we talk about this all the time, he's the guy that concussed himself running into the ring against Jay White, and that was just the low point. And since then, he has rehabilitated himself in such a way that if you are watching this consistently, you know that Yoshihashi delivers.
But then he went super short on a drop kick to the outside in this match, and it sort of looked like old Yoshihashi was back.
It did, but like he's just been like, I'm willing to forgive it because I have been so impressed with him for so long. Like the tag matches with Hiroki Goto, just he's been doing good work that has been largely ignored because there are so many other people that get more attention that I just like to give him his credit when there's opportunity to do so.
Without a doubt. And he was also 0-7 in Ota in singles matches. So it was like a double whammy of, like, for whatever reason, I don't think that when I looked back at his results in the building, it didn't feel intentional. Like, it didn't feel like we were building to this moment in that way. The 0-4 against Kenta felt more that way.
Yes.
The post match was interesting, with I think the post match was meant to set up what's going to happen with tag titles, right? Where Yoshihashi's like, oh, I finally won. So let's shake hands and bury the hatchet. And Kenta almost gave him the like, yeah, okay.
And he's
then,
like, up yours.
yeah, and it was clear what was gonna. It felt pretty clear what was gonna happen there. Unless we're getting babyface Kenta, which I'd be fine with. But yeah, the match was functional, good. It was everything you'd want it to be. It was better than the match that I sat through in New York when they were what was that? That was for the Never title.
Yeah.
At Hammerstein Ballroom, which was fun, but it wasn't nearly as crisp as this. I think Yoshihashi's really coming to his own. Kenta's doing what Kenta can do now. He's not trying to do what Kenta has always done, which is smart. So yeah, I mean, good stuff. Good first round New Japan Cup match, right? Like,
I do love that young Yoshihashi is finally coming into his own.
he's gonna be this guy that's there forever.
Right. He's going to be like Makabe.
He's going to be Makabe. He's going to be, but without ever really reaching that ceiling. Right. Like, but I think soon enough, you'll see a Yoshihashi, some sort of singles title run, and it could be really fun. And they'll always have Bishamon. And I think that that's been the perfect lane for him and Goto.
Absolutely.
Like, and I'm curious if Yoshihashi gets another signature win in this tournament. Who does he have next? Sonata. So no, probably not.
No,
probably not.
But it'd be
another good functional New Japan Cup match.
Yeah, exactly. I think that'll be a decent match, and I think Yoshihashi has already accomplished his mission for the tournament, which is to set up the tag title match later, and then we're going to get another chapter of that with Goto and Chase, and we'll get to that when we get to those results. But I think he probably accomplished his cup mission already.
Yeah, the New Japan Cup box check is always finding who has a title and who would be a good contender for that title along the way that can be set up immediately after going into Sakura Genesis so that card gets filled out. And so Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto versus Kenta and Chase Owens seems like that is exactly the direction that we're going in that one.
We'll see here. And so we go on to the next one, which is Jack Perry and Shota Umino. So this is Jack Perry's, I believe, first match or something since the big kerfluffle, the big to do, and he was back here in the New Japan ring. In this case, he came out with a goat mask, like he came out of an episode of True Detective season 1. So that was always nice. Jeremy and I both noticed the same thing there.
I let you have the line.
Says, True Detective. There it is. Of course, he's playing up the whole scapegoat thing. So, by the way, Shota Umino has that move he does where it's a hanging DDT from the ring to the apron. He vaults over the top rope all the way to the floor. It DDTs the guy. Looks fantastic. I love that move. And he did it here. Looked great. He had a Blaze Blade at the 10-minute mark, and that began the big moves, and the crowd was building. Umino hit the ignition neck breaker. Now, this is where Kanemaru distracted the ref, and Ren Narita, can't get rid of the guy, came in and hit Umino with the push-up bar. I'm still not totally clear on what the point of a push-up bar is. I've never really had that clarified for me. I even asked a personal trainer in my gym, by the way, and they're just like, a what? And I said, well, this is a bar that goes across the round and you do push-ups off it. And they just said, huh. They were just like, there's a bar for that. They couldn't really figure out why either. But anyway, he clobbered him with the push-up bar. It led to the pin.
Keeps your form,
Rest of House of Torture came out.
Germs, ringworm on your hands.
Maybe.
Not a concern of slimy Ren Narita.
Yeah, I wouldn't think. The rest of House of Torture then came out, handed Perry a t-shirt. He accepted. So now we have Shota Umino again, frustrated, taking another loss. He's down and out again. Jack Perry is now a member of House of Torture. I will say that Jack Perry joining House of Torture works for me. I think it makes a lot of sense. And you're talking about the difference between the War Dogs and the House of Torture, right? If you're just going to go full heel in New Japan, it's either one of those two places, right? And the issue with storyline-wise, with the War Dogs is they feel unappreciated they just don't get the opportunities everybody else does that they feel like they deserve. And so screw you, we're going to beat the hell out of everybody and take it. That's not really Jack Perry's point in all this. He calls himself the scapegoat. What's being unsaid is that they're blaming me for the CM Punk thing. What's being expressly said is screw AEW, screw New Japan. And House of Torture's attitude is more like, we reject every tenet of pro wrestling and just want to flip the bird at the whole process. And we don't care about having good matches. We don't care about entertaining you. It fits his whole thing with AEW screwed me over. I don't like anybody. It fits better with House of Torture, I think, than it does with the War Dogs. So I was there for this when he put on the shirt. What do you think, Chris?
I'm fine with it. It's probably short term. It's probably not something that's going to live forever, or it's going to bring House of Torture to AEW, which listen, I'm here for the discourse.
Let's get the chaos.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't even know.
I mean, listen, someone's got to win Best of Super Juniors, and there's another show in June.
I don't know if Jack Perry is going to be a Super Junior.
No.
No,
but Show is the IWGP Junior champion. So someone's got to win Best of Super Juniors, and then the next big New Japan show in June, past Dominion, would be Forbidden Door, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I've got the tinfoil hat on there that somehow maybe this is a conduit to bring House of Torture in for at least a Forbidden Door arc.
I have no idea who the guy would be in AEW to put the junior heavyweight title or
totally.
I have no idea.
And like who do they let you call a junior, right? Or who do you let go for a very long tour? I mean, the Best Super Juniors. It's 28 days this year.
It's a month. It's
in a perfect world, I would have Darby Allin and just have him hang out in Japan.
He's going to be on top of a mountain in Tibet.
I mean, what's the trip from Everest to Japan?
Well, it's not
going to be down for an adventure.
No, he's not. I mean, it's not going to be Darby Allin, but he's not going to be available because I've read books on this. This is taking up too much of my head, but climbing Mount Everest I don't want to do it, but it's always fascinated me.
Yeah.
You do that in May. You do that's when the weather lines up to where you can kind of summit Mount Everest. That's when most people summit is in May. So he's going to be pretty busy for the first beginning of that Super Junior tournament anyway, if he lives. 10 people died last year doing this.
He's pretty fit. He's probably got a good chance of living.
The 10 people that died thought so too.
Yeah, sure. He's not the guy, but I mean, that's my tinfoil hat theory about what's happening, or like part of what's happening at least, right? Jack Perry's got to come back eventually. He may as well come back with this unit as a part of this show. We finally get House of Torture in AEW, maybe against the Devil and his, we could go real deep into the discourse, but overall, the early parts of this match I thought were worked really well. I thought these guys looked good. I think they worked well together. I think Jack Perry looked pretty good. He shook the dust off pretty quickly. Umino, he's really coming into his own. I think there's a lot to work with both these guys. What I will say is that I think it's a real miss if Jack Perry, if his torture device, as we like to call the weapons of choice for the House of Torture guys, if his torture device doesn't have something to do with glass, I think we've missed the boat. We've completely missed the mark. So I don't know what it's going to be. We'll probably see in his first singles match, or in his next singles match against Toriano.
He might call the snare trap a bear trap.
Hey. But I do wonder what Jack Perry's weapon of choice is.
Venkin mentions that he agrees that he's a good heel here because Chicago will hate him because, of course, that's punk country. And the Western audience hates House of Torture anyway, so throw him in there and it'll get heat. So, and Colin says, imagine it, HOT and AEW. Yeah.
Definitely felt like Jack Perry was working a lot of stuff out in this match and just kind of feeling out this character because it was his first match. I don't know if you guys caught the backstage comments, but he mentioned that he actually did, and it could be shoot, fake, whatever. He actually asked to quit AEW in the midst of all this. He could have wrestled a month after everything, but he hasn't wrestled in 6 months. He was wrestling angry. He was just giving off a vibe that made me feel like this transformation in new character was legit and genuine. And I think they are going to try to keep this House of Torture connection at some point, but eventually he's going to end up with the Young Bucks in AEW. That's what they were hinting at as his friends based off of Instagram posts and stuff there. So Jack Perry is making a lot of interesting friends right now.
That's sensible because everyone's wink, nudge, nudging the CM Punk situation.
Yes.
And they're sort of allowing for that right now. So yeah, I think I don't think that's out of the question. Plus you call yourself the scapegoat. I mean, like that's actually a pretty good gimmick when it comes down to it. So may as well run with it.
Yeah, so
He might be
that
good
guy
in
has
this
a bright future with a lot of people interested in what's going on with Jack Perry. So good for him.
He finally has
Apparently-
he finally has a character. And that's not
Apparently-
Jungle Boy, you know,
Yeah,
like what?
true. And when apparently Japanese fans found out that he was actually the son of Luke Perry, aka Dylan McKay,
They're stoked.
they were actually like, they lost their mind. Like, it made him even more popular.
After that, we
That's
did
real
have
too.
the main event match was non-title, of course, but we had the junior heavyweight champion against the heavyweight champion. Tetsuya Naito and Sho just went over 20 minutes. Naito said, just in case you were wondering who would win this, Naito said beforehand he would vacate the title if he lost. So not a whole lot of doubt about this one. But nevertheless, with House of Torture having a hot night, the crowd was into Naito from the start, which they would have been anyway, but even more so. He was wrestling somebody from HOT. So it's funny. I criticized this because I wanted to see Desperado versus Naito more. It would have been a better match. But I did also say when Naito first won the title that some of his first title matches should be against 100% pure heels to take advantage of all the goodwill with Naito and not split the crowd. Well, this did not split the crowd. The people were very much in Tetsuya Naito's corner all the way through this. And there was some catharsis early where Naito just sort of outfoxed and beat up Sho. And but eventually, they did a whole back and forth. It was a good match. I'm not going to describe every move right here, but you can go back and watch it. It's worth going back to see. Red Shoes was bumped. Sho battered Naito's knee with a chair, and then they teased the count out. And after the second bump, a little bit more severe bump for Red Shoes, House of Torture came in, but not Perry, interestingly. LIJ ended up making the save, and this is probably why Perry wasn't out there. They did the whole thing where they took turns taking each other out until we were left with the original two. Naito hit the pop-up low blow that looked fabulous. Really looked terrific. Valencia Destino for 3. All you want out of these anniversary show main events when they're non-title is a good match. And we got that. They did their job. Naito got the win. Crowd went home happy. They got the roll call. No notes. That's exactly what you'd want out of a main event in an anniversary show like this.
Yeah, I had no issue with this, but I do think Naito is absolutely the best opponent for anything House of Torture. I don't know if he's just really good at selling it or if he is the most beloved, most believably kind of, classic babyface in those positions, but it lands. It lands almost every time. Like even in the G1s with Evil or in this situation with Sho, you knew Sho wasn't going to even get a banana peel win over Tetsuya Naito. Like that's outrageous, but somehow they made it interesting and it was good. I mean, yeah, sure. Did I want Hiromu versus Naito? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Did I want El Desperado versus Naito if it wasn't Hiromu? Absolutely. Sho, I love Sho. I think he's a great wrestler. I think it's a shame that he's shackled in this world. But you know what? We were I forget if we were on air or off air.
Right?
He is committed.
He's committed. Yeah,
he's committed.
Absolutely going for it.
I've heard lots of things about whether or not Sho likes it, but he is committed.
Like there was a point last year where I could watch him and it's like, wow, you are just checked out. But for whatever reason, the batteries are recharged, and this guy is like, okay, I'm going full on this.
He's like, if this is what you want, this is what you're gonna get, and I'm gonna do everything you could possibly do with it. So, it is what it is, and he pulled it off in this, and he's really kind of honed in on the character side of it. So, and Naito's Naito. I mean, he's not the crispest, the cleanest. He's not but he's still got that energy. Right, and he's still got that aura.
And House of Torture is the Coyote.
I mean, that's exactly it.
Yeah. It works out too with Naito because, of course, LIJ at the beginning were pure heels who interfered in each other's matches and did things. So it's very believable that Naito could outfox them.
Totally.
Just like I've done this before. I know this trick and I know how to counter it. And so when Naito does it, and again, that's one of the best things that a heel that's turned babyface could do is do all the heel stuff to the heels. That's one of the things that's most over. And so when Naito gets in there, it all makes sense. Like Bushi, Sonata, Evil, they were all introduced by interfering in his matches. So when he turns the tables on HOT, it's just saying, I wrote that playbook. Don't try to bring that crap to me. I know what you're doing. So that ended that show. And we move on to New Japan Cup Night 2 at Korakuen Hall. This one had 1,324, so a good crowd there at Korakuen, but it's Korakuen, right? You know, and New Japan and Korakuen usually draws a pretty solid crowd unless there is a what was that? Well, it was like a snowstorm that hit on a Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that hurt the walk up there.
That looked like a mid-pandemic Korakuen.
But I also
Steven,
saw the snow that hit Tokyo that day.
If we could do the quick spiel for the Fight Game Media Network real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are members of the Fight Game Media Network. We are on the YouTube channel along with Powerbomb shows and the Dynamite show and occasionally the Double G show, where we talk about all things pro wrestling, as well as an audio network for the Fight Game Media on all major podcatchers. You get The Boom, which is currently on hiatus, but due to make a return at some point. We have The Wrap, which covers WWE. We have the 5-Star Joshi show with Scott Edwards. And we also have the Dynamite show on there. So if you like what we're doing here and you want to share it, hit that like button. Share it with anyone on Twitter, on Facebook. We love it. Reddit. Talk about it wherever. Just hit the like, subscribe, share button. Please and thank you. And Steven, let's get back to you.
All right. And don't forget to also rate us, leave us a review on the podcasting things. That does help us, helps people find the show. And also, 5-Star Joshi show is going to be live here right here on the YouTube page in a couple hours. I think it's going around at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Going to be talking another company that is in the midst of some heavy transition. So always interesting with Scott Edwards there. So Korakuen Hall, we had a couple of preview tags to roll this one out. Nothing too much of note, but we'll talk about them here. We had Bishamon and Bolton teaming up to beat the Gorillas of Destiny. That was Jado in there taking the fall on that one with the Shoto, El Fantasmo, Hikuleo, and of course a little bit more about Oleg and Hikuleo, the big strong boys who will be meeting up in the coming days. So, I am kind of looking forward to that one just to see what they do. I like Oleg a lot, like Hikuleo a lot, and but again, it just showed Bishamon's just such a smooth team too. So, I mean, as an opener, nice match, but all telling the tale of Bolton and Hikuleo.
ELP was the one to take the gut wrench this time?
Yes. And afterwards, he just looked pretty depressed about it too. His backstage, his comments were just a little bit like, "Hey, man, geez." I also like the line that Hiromu had, which is like, he said, "Geez, that guy's so strong. It's like everything he does is finisher." That's what I thought was a fun. It's like every time he hits me, I just feel like I fly across the ring, which was literally true in that one match he had with Bolton. So, anyway, very quick thing. And then TMDK, that was Nichols and Sabre again. They wrestled Makabe and Yano. Now you have 3 people that are in the tournament and one who isn't. So take a wild guess what happened there. Not much doubt about it. It was indeed Togi Makabe taking the pin there. I thought it was
love this new Makabe taking falls.
It's relatively new, really.
That, I mean, in my world of data analysis and analytics, like, this is a big shift from the way things used to be or were just very recently. We could have the bump counter out for Makabe and it could not even get clicked. And now he's taking finishes and he's the guy taking the fall. I mean, we have.
I love you popping for the analytics right here.
We have seen a full evolution of Mr. Togi Makabe, and you know what?
This is a real.
He looks pretty good doing it.
He even tapped a real paradigm shift.
Yeah,
he even tapped. Not all that long, not in this one, but he's tapped.
Yeah. I had to look up. He hadn't tapped in years. I mean, it was like Okada level. Like, I had to go way back in the Wayback Machine to find a Togi Makabe submission loss.
It's funny, they bring it up every once in a while, but Makabe might be the most famous New Japan guy, just mainstream wise, because he does a lot of TV, and meaning like morning shows, talk shows, panel shows, anywhere where you just need big celebrity personalities. Like Makabe does a lot of those. Apparently he's great at them because they just keep bringing him.
There's a lot of people who are surprised to learn that he was or is a pro wrestler. Like that's how like permeated he is in the kind of pop culture out there.
Yeah, it's funny so anyway, he's a guy that shows up on a lot of places if you know how to write his name in Japanese, which I really don't, but I have learned that if you can do it and go into YouTube, you'll find all kinds of things that have nothing to do with wrestling. Togi Makabe on various shows. After that, we had a 6-man tag. It was Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, and Jeff Cobb against the Bullet Club team of Kenta, Gabe Kidd, and Taiji Ishimori. Now, I mentioned Hiromu said that he bounced around the ring for Boltin Oleg. Well, Taiji Ishimori was thrown around like a Cabbage Patch doll by Jeff Cobb in this match. And I love both of these guys, but my goodness, every time Cobb touched Ishimori, he just got air. And he ended up getting him with a tour of the islands, but that wasn't the impressive thing. It was like he grabbed Ishimori's wrists and threw him up in the air like an uncle tossing their favorite nephew, just up there. And then he comes down into the tour of the islands thing. And bless their hearts, boy, that looked like they were having a good time with each other out there. They really did, by the way. It looked like they were having fun.
There were two spots on both of these cards that I watched over and over again. This was one of them. And the other one was when Jack Perry took the Blaze Blade and he was on the ground and he was doing like his arms out. And you just got the shot of Shota nailing him from behind. And he's just like, you just see the impact. I played it like 5 times. Like both of these spots were just need to go on end of year reels for great bumps for the year.
And they had a little spice on the end of it. They had Kidd and Newman brawl a little bit after the match just to add a little heat for their match coming up in the tournament. So good stuff overall.
Callum looks like he got shot out of a rocket a couple points in this match.
Well, that's just kind of his first gear. He's like shot out of rocket. Yeah. He's so fast.
They call him the Prince of Pace for a reason, but if you want to see why they talk about it, put on this match and just watch the first 2 minutes and just watch it.
His interview on NJPW 1972 recently was kind of really interesting, just his approach and his path to where he is right now. He's a guy who might stick around for a while.
Yeah, I like his prospects.
A lot of people have said that. I'm curious. I assume they haven't called him a junior.
He doesn't look like a junior.
He's got enough build where I think he could go either way. He's kind of like Dan Maloney in that way. Yeah. I would love to see him in there with the juniors for at least a short, even just a one best of super juniors. Get him in there with the CMLL guys. I would love that. But
his frame makes him look like he's a junior, but when he stands next to other people,
tall.
He looks like Zack Sabre Jr. level of like height. And so it's deceptive, but he's so fast. It's this like Kyle Fletcher build kind of thing going on where as he fills out, it'll be no question that he's going to be a heavy, but give me one BOSJ with him just running around with some of these guys and like outpacing some of the Lucha guys. Oh, I'd love it. That match he had with, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
The match he had with Tomohiro Ishii. Sorry. The match he had with Tomohiro Ishii back in December.
Oh, that rocked.
Was what put him on the map. And I think about that all the time. And it's like, there are definitive matches that people have that most people don't talk about or notice. But if you see it, you're like, okay, this is something special.
And Chris, was it you that were you when you were a guest on here? Did you mention something that the junior division in New Japan is more about height than it is weight anyway?
That is my ongoing theory. Yeah.
So Newman is.
It's almost more the heavy division is that way because like some people talk about Hiromu going heavy all the time because again, in case of emergency break glass, Hiromu wins the G1, right? That dude's 5'7". Yeah. Like, and I know Ishii's 5'7". They're the same height, but Ishii's like real big. Yeah. Hiromu, like he's really short. Like, I just don't know if the build is there. That's why I think a guy like Desperado going heavy makes a lot more sense. But it's like, tell me Taiji Ishimori is a heavyweight and he's like up to my shoulder. I don't, I don't really buy it when you think he could go over Jeff Cobb, right? I do. I think that there's a height component to being a junior. It's all work. I mean, come on.
We're not on the scales here. We're not on the scales. So yeah. All right. After that, we had House of Torture.
911. I looked up. It was 911th time that they met.
Oh, okay. Well, you want to go to that one? Well, we had the House of Torture match and against Desperado, Umino, Honma, and Yo first. We can do that. So that was Evil.
One, apparently. My bad.
Yeah, we had Evil, Jack Perry, Ren Narita, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Now, Sho came out with a obviously fake crutch, and well, it wasn't a fake crutch; it was a real crutch. But he was faking it. He had a sling on. He said that he couldn't wrestle, but Jack Perry is going to take his place. And in the meantime, Yo was wrestling with a backpack on. Now, of course, Yo has stolen the junior heavyweight title belt because has the junior A title belt. Someone has to steal it from him. It's a rule. We don't make the rules around here, folks. We just report them, but that's how New Japan's doing this now. And at one point, Kanemaru pulls it off, throws it to Sho, who, of course, runs off, miraculously cured of all of his injuries. And turns out, however, that was a decoy. Yo did not have the belt in the backpack. The backpack was filled with something else. So he still has the stolen title. But Honma had a little rally that got the crowd excited, but Narita used the push-up bar to cheat and beat Tomoaki Honma. Can't even beat. So if we're talking about Sho investing in the gimmick and being committed to it, Ren Narita is using the push-up bar to pin Honma in a match. So that's a man who is House of Torture through and through now. And then a post-match beatdown on poor Shota Umino, who's just having a hell of a couple of months. Yeah, I did think that was kind of funny. You need the push-up bar to cheat and beat Tomoaki Honma and pin him. So House of Torture committed to the gimmick.
You got to protect the legends. I actually thought that was a clever way to get Jack Perry into this match.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I don't know, if you got to do it somehow, you may as well make a bit out of it. So
Yeah. No, I got a kick out of it too. I had fun with this. I did. I thought this
on the in the undercard, House of Torture. I mean, this Boris and Natasha, perfect. As it moves up the card, that's when you start to hear people complain about it.
It's true.
There's an escalation of how important they are to the grand scheme of things. That people are like, once you hit a certain level, you're like, stop, just stop right there, and then they keep going like, no, you went past the sweet spot.
After that, Jeremy,
that push-up bar when he hit Honma, that thing cracked in my headphones when I was listening to it. I was like, oh my god, that sounds like it hurts.
Honma is still made of granite. I mean, that guy's still pretty cut, despite everything that's happened to him. He's still pretty well built. So that was hitting a pretty hard surface, that push-up bar. Now we had what did we say, Jeremy? This is
I think it was 911.
911th match between LIJ and just 5 guys. So these guys have basically been wrestling each other for 5 months. And we're about done with it, or at least I am. But this was another match. I mean, it's good, but boy, we've seen this a lot. Shingo and Uemura are coming up. So I believe it's a hometown match for Shingo, but he lost in his hometown last year. So you never know. And then, of course, that was the preview there, Uemura and Shingo Takagi. And after the match, there were a lot of very long looks at the title belt from both Yota Tsuji and Shingo Takagi. Which played into it a little bit because Naito mentioned that, hey, why don't we? I'm looking for you two to come and meet me in the big title match after the finals. So, but they were staring at the belts rather longingly, as of course they would. Yota Tsuji ended up trucking Taka Michinoku with the big spear, the Gene Blast, as it's called, with a wink and a nod. For the pin on that. So again, we've seen this match 1,000 times, or pushing 1,000. We're still at 910, but there was setting up Uemura and Shingo, which is a match I'm pretty curious to see which direction they go with.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. I thought this match, while long in the tooth, was creative enough because they weren't just going back to the same story plots that they were going for the last month and a half, going into the one-on-one matches with each other. The splits are different, and that makes it a little palatable. But yes, going back to this again when you thought it was done 10 days ago was kind of a choice.
There you go. Benkin says we've seen this a lot, and it's been going for about half a year. Yeah, it has, pretty much. We move on to the cup matches. Chase Owens and Tomohiro Ishii. Now, I joked on this show that if Ishii doesn't win, I riot, just because I wanted to see Ishii versus Goto. Yeah. But the writing was on the wall here. But there are a couple of instances of second round matches we'd really love to see. We're not going to get either one of them.
Because you want it, not because you think it's going to happen.
But we could have had Ishii and Goto and Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. in the second round.
Those are the two I'm talking about. We're not going to get either one.
We could have had a couple of gifts that would have shut everyone up. That would be like, all right,
could have just freebies.
Here's what you get. You finally get your matches.
No, sir.
Nope.
We're not getting either of them.
Especially when chaos is in chaos.
No.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But so what we had here, we are.
what we had here was here's the remarkable thing about this match, though. It was almost all Chase Owens. So it was all Chase early. This was Ishii just trying to make him like he was some new guy coming in, and I'm going to make this guy look like $1 million because he just sold and sold and sold, and he beat on Ishii. It ended up going up back and forth for a little while, but most of the big moves were Chase's. He hit C triggers, multiple ones. He hit Styles Clash for 2, which was a hoot. Each kick out got a little bit more of a response from the crowd. And I was sitting here watching Ishii sell for this guy. And I'm just thinking, this guy we already know Ishii's brilliant, but for the love of God, he's got Korakuen Hall living and dying during a Chase Owens match. And who can do that? And Ishii is just really great at this whole thing. And basically the story of the match was that Chase kept hitting Ishii with big moves, and he kept kicking out until he didn't anymore. I mean, really, Ishii didn't get a whole lot of big stuff in. He almost got the vertical drop brainbuster within an inch of it, which was the big tease. Chase got out of it, and then eventually, after almost hitting the package pile, he did. He hit the package pile driver and won the match. So we get the other half of the rivalry for the tag team titles. Now we had Yoshihashi and Kenta. Now we have Chase Owens and Hirooki Goto in round 2. And they teased us with the idea of the Ishii and Goto, who had some hellacious matches many years ago for the never open weight title, back when that was just the BMF belt, basically, in New Japan, back in the Makabe, Goto, Ishii era. Almost got that again. We don't get to see them in with each other much since they're both in chaos. So I was hoping, but no. Bullet Club, dirty bastards, heels. There you go. Chase Owens on to round 2.
I thought this match over delivered, and that
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
it was better than I thought it was going to be, and I was pleasantly surprised when it was over.
But like,
and I was
that's
totally okay
Ishii.
with Chase moving on.
That's Ishii in a singles match in Korakuen. Like, it's going to be better than you think, and oftentimes you already think it's going to be really good. Like, that's his lane. And you know what? Chase is a good wrestler. I mean, like, good, functional. He's always in there.
The system for years.
He's been in the system for years, and he's always been in the ring for finishes, which means he can do these big finishing sequences and has done them 100 times with all these guys that are well above the card, or well above him on the card. Like, Chase has that role. And so, when you get 15 minutes of it, your mileage may vary, right? Like, but he can give you a good 3 to 5, and that's more. We got more than that here. So he's a motivated guy. I think this might be a contract year for Chase, and I don't know what he's got going on. He's got to buy a new car, and he's got a lot of stuff happening. So
he wrecked his car only a few days ago.
He's trying to earn it. He's a guy that there's 3 dozen people that would take his spot in a heartbeat if it was up for grabs. So he's motivated to work at the level that New Japan wants him to do, which is a lower mid-card Gaijin wrestler. And he understands the assignment, and when it's time to step up, he can step up. And, if he's not too expensive, he should be kept around, and I don't think he is.
Yeah, I just mentioned that. I mentioned before that Chase provides a very valuable service for Bullet Club. Actually, is a guy who can have good matches and lose falls, and that really helps. He can protect all the rest of the guys in the company. And right now, he's got the tag team belts. We'll see how long they hold them. I don't see them as long-term champions, but nevertheless, he's in a bit of a run right now, and he's had. And Chris, you probably are already on top of this, but he had his big singles wins tend to come at Korakuen Hall. He beat Tanahashi in the G1 in Korakuen. He had another one in the New Japan Cup where he busted a bracket not too long ago. I can't remember against who. He said it in backstage comments. Now I'm blanking on it. He's won these.
He's got wins over all the big guys. I mean, he's got these little gold watch wins, as we like to call them, at the end of a G1, or in the towards the end of a G1. He's got those. So I mean, he's a plausible winner. Usually it's more banana peel than this, but he's been
positioned as a threat enough time where you can take him seriously.
Well, the package pile driver is super protected. So if he almost hits it, the crowd's like, like they know that's the finish, and like no one kicks out of that, and there's no reason to change that. I mean, Chase is, in the grand scheme of things, not that important, but at least he's got that finish that he can get a gasp out of it. I don't know. It better than I thought it would be.
New Japan will protect a finish, won't they? Because, like I said, the Styles Clash is still over. I mean, it's not used as a finisher anymore, but the Styles Clash is still over in New Japan. It's been years since AJ was there, and of course, you know, they still won't. They won't even let anyone kick out of a one-winged angel or even really do it, except in like I think someone else did. Someone other than Kenny Omega attempted a one-winged angel or teased it, and the whole crowd was like, "Holy!" You know, when they get something that works, man, they don't burn it. You know, that's the one thing. Just because the guy leaves, they don't burn it. They keep it, so it works.
Chris and Steven, I got bad news for you.
What's that?
We did not go 2 for 2 on over delivering New Japan Cup matches on this evening.
Referring to this one, well, you know,
you can only ask for so much.
Tangaloa and the Great Okan. Yeah. So Okan,
how can you over deliver if you just found out you're in the tournament?
Yeah. Tangaloa. Okan started out hot early. Tangaloa managed to, when he hit the apeshit move there, people did get into it. There were some big knee strikes after exchanging moves, and really he won with the Kamigoye, basically. So at this point, between Tangaloa beating Great Okan and Chase Owens beating Ishii, I thought, well, maybe this is just upset special day, but I don't know. There are a couple things that could be going on here. They could be tearing Okan down to build him back up again. This could be a little bit of a middle finger to him for doing the stunt with the belt and Okada and all that, grandstanding a little bit. I don't know if we're getting a big push for Tangaloa, but also when you look at the bracket, Tangaloa is now in position to do a job for a guy that they probably need to move on. And so I guess this served its purpose right here, but this is not going to go on any compilation of great matches.
It was a match that happened. Yeah, the booking of Great Okan, we could talk for days about. I don't, I don't,
mystery to me.
He's not helping himself.
I'm sure there's a lot of that, right? Yep. There's at least some of that. But Great Okan's also having a great time, so he's gonna live his life out loud. Okay.
Apparently he has a cameo in a movie too. Apparently he has a cameo in a movie coming out.
Yeah, and talking about that in the backstage comments.
If you have 10 minutes, go ahead and listen to the backstage comment. He will tell you all about it.
If you have seen the gif of Tangaloa chopping Okada at the G1 last year, that moveset made a return to this match with Great Okan. And I don't know if it looked better or worse on this attempt.
Did you see the mashup, Jeremy, that somebody put together of Haku and that? Did you see
the Shockmaster laugh? But
okay, so I got to put it in context real quick right here. So they did. It is a funny viral little thing where Haku watched. They put a little monitor in front of Haku, and he watched Fred Ottman come in as the Shockmaster and trip over the wall and his mask fall off. You know, the famous pratfall. You know what I'm talking about? Where Shockmaster busted through the wall at Clash of the Champions. They didn't clear the thing all the way to the floor, so he's walking through this little gimmicked hole in the wall, trips, falls, mask falls off. One of the biggest slapstick things. So they showed that to Haku. Haku's just dying laughing. He says, this is a riot. They cut him doing that little jab flick to Okada into Haku dying of laughter at how bad it was. That was what the mashup was.
That's funny.
So you're seeing Haku is just like, oh, it's so bad, and just falling over laughing. You see Tangaloa doing that. Back to Haku just going, oh, see, what an idiot. Listen, you're just like, oh, God.
The internet never forgets.
That's clever.
It was clever.
If you need to know how the office feels about Great Okan, you can realize that he's the only person in New Japan that's had 3 singles matches against Tangaloa.
He's like the problem child, isn't he?
Yeah, but someone there must actually like him.
Yeah,
we don't know.
It's like, well, we can't get rid of him. It's too funny. We got to have him around. It's like he's too much fun. We got to have him around. Oh, but he annoys me. Yeah, but he's funny. Yeah, something like that going on. Anyway, we have the main event of the show was David Finlay and TJP. Now, this match began with TJP on fire, and the TJP chants went right away. I don't think, Jeremy, you were the only person, and we mentioned that other people thought so, but I think the crowd sensed that we might be getting an upset here because they reacted to TJP basically right off the bat. Finlay bullied him a while once he got the advantage, but TJP began working the arm. It was about at the 10-minute mark when they did a big octopus hold spot, and that's kind of what set off the big move sequence. There was an Oblivion, more chance for TJP. At that point, Ghetto hopped up on the apron, distracted the ref, but slid the shillelagh into the ring. Finlay went to use it, and he got the mist in the face, the red mist.
Ashwang.
I'll tell you what.
Agwong.
He's never far away. After a while, though, Finlay did get a power bomb and the overkill to win it. And so there it is. The upset special off the board there, unfortunately for Jeremy, but for David Finlay, possible road to a little bit of rehabilitation going a little deeper into this tournament. And considering, I think, Tongaloa is his next match, I think he's in pretty good shape to make the quarters.
Hey, I mean, Tongaloa might be the ringer. I don't think.
Dunson's asking, why on earth is Loa in this tournament? You're telling me Luke Jacobs isn't available and cheap to bring in? Well,
Tongaloa is under contract, I believe.
I think they're already paying him. So sometimes that's the most economic move you can do, is take the guy that you don't have to shell out any extra for.
My bet would be Tongaloa and Tamatanga were on the same contract cycle, but Tongaloa was out for so long with that injury. So, and I would imagine that their contracts are either by date or by time, and there may be some injury time thing or, whatever. I know that his contract was not up at the same time, so that leads me to believe he is still under contract. So yeah, so you bring him in, and he's a guy that the crowd recognizes. And right now that might be that's a plus.
Might be the point. Let's see what else. Let's see.
So
Venkin asks,
and the pressure's off, but I honestly feel like it was a win either way. If TJP won, it was a great story, and it seemed like the crowd would be behind it. But at the same time, we've been talking start the clock on Finlay with the IWGP title hunt, and it seemed like after the post talk of it, this was what the plan was. So I'll let you get to it. The match. Did we already recap the match?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was a good match. It was a good match. I didn't want to get into the blow by blow of it, but I think people should get into it and see it. But yeah, it was basically big moves down the stretch until he hit that power bomb, and then the overkill, as it's called now, which is like the Trash Panda with the knee. It's almost like mashed it up with the GTS in there. So yeah, but
so when he made the declaration that he was going for the IWGP title as well as the global title, because before all of this happened, he was very clear that he was going to use this cup win to go for the global title, and that seemed pretty bizarre given the way that everything was laid out. But now all of a sudden he's like, screw it, I'll go for both. And I'm like, okay, that's what a final boss should be doing in New Japan. So I'm okay with it, but it did seem like a pivot. Chris, do you feel, or do you know if this was always kind of like the plan that he was going to go after the IWGP? Or were you under another different impression?
Well, I think sometimes guys talk and then a match gets booked and they're not in it. And then they have to say, yeah, but I want the other one. That would be my bet. My bet would be what happened was he was like, I want my global title back because he lost to Nemeth. Nemeth's probably not long term, right? You figure maybe they're going to continue the program, or Nemeth's going to get one defense, or whatever, right? I mean, we've heard that it's out there that Nemeth is on a short, small amount of matches on his deal.
He was probably going to beat Tanahashi and then lose fairly soon.
Lose it to whoever else, right? Mm-hmm. So. Finlay's trying to stay in the mix there. And then, the Tanahashi match gets announced and Finlay's like, well, I'm in the cups, and the cups for they actually announced that you don't get a title choice with the cup this year, which they've done in the past. Mm-hmm. You get a shot at Naito. So he's going to talk about taking a shot at Naito.
Yeah, it was just weird. So that was the part of it where it was like this year, it felt like they're sticking to plans, but booking on the fly at the same time, and you're getting a weird mishmash of left not being able to communicate with the right at all times.
Venkin's asking, didn't Nemeth defend the title in TNA already? I think he did. Didn't he?
Tomorrow, I think. Yeah.
But that's
tomorrow
taped,
or this weekend. It is against Macklin at Sacrifice, I believe.
Okay, there you go. But and he said, there's the bracket. Okay, so Venkin asked a good question though. He said, what are the options after Tongaloa for Finlay as far as who might beat him? And right now, I got to say, I think he's probably going to the finals, just looking at tea leaves here.
At least the semis.
Perhaps the semis against Sonata, if they want to send Sonata back to the finals.
I don't think they'll have Sonata beat him again. Sonata beat him last year.
Maybe, but 83% of people have Finlay going in of the Sport of Pro Wrestling brackets have Finlay going at least to the semis. So that's by far the highest. I mean, he's such a clean path to the semis, at least.
Yep.
He also has a pretty clean path to the final, right? If you look at that top quadrant, you've got Sonata, Yoshihashi, Jack Perry, and Toriano, right? Like maybe there's an option in there. Maybe Sonata, maybe Jack Perry gets the real rocket. But I mean, 53% of people have Finley going to the final.
This was his toughest match to get through.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
Yeah,
like
it was.
This was, you could argue either way, and I argued the wrong way that TJP had a pretty clean. Whoever got through this match had a very clean path to a Final Four.
Yeah.
Also, just so you guys' opinion here, as we look at this bracket here, you got the Sonata quadrant, the Goto quadrant, just using the people that have buys, and on the right side, Evil and Saber. To me, much more intriguing first round matches coming up than what we've had so far. Like this.
The Evil bracket is, to me, the most interesting bracket.
Well, the Evil bracket to me is all about if we're gonna rebuild the Never Openweight Championship, right? You've got Gabe, you've got, I mean, if you want to get Yuya involved there, you've got Shingo, you've got Oleg or Hikuleo, whoever goes through there. Like maybe we could get the Never get the Never Openweight title back to its identity somehow with whatever challenge comes out of that bracket if Evil doesn't go that far. But the whole right side, and I've said this from day one, the right side of this bracket looks like classic New Japan Cup bracket. The left side looks like current New Japan Cup booking. So I mean, like, and it's been exactly that. I mean, today broke some people. I mean, some people that I have pretty measured conversations with really frequently, like their brains are broken. So and I was like, I think tomorrow's gonna be a fun show. I mean, Shingo, Yuya, Callum Newman, and Gabe Kidd, and I'm wildly intrigued by Hikuleo, Bolton, Oleg. So
I'm fine with it. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not broken. But, if we're in a similar position in a year, I might have some problems.
Yeah, Dunstan says zero faith in Never title is getting back to that legend status before. So this is the kind of, I bring that comment up just because I think that people are so confused right now at the direction that they're just, they're just losing faith that it's ever going to be the same again. And it is an interesting question. What is the secondary title in this company at the moment?
I think it's the global.
I think so too, but
but then you bounce it right off of one of the guys that you want to be a guy and onto a visitor ultimately.
Yeah. And then you don't have the through line of him actually wrestling against New Japan talent. Like with that Tanahashi match off the table, it just feels like a prop belt that has no like lineage.
Well, there's without the depth, there's not a great backup plan, right? So, I mean, maybe they go right back to Finley and just cut ties and call it a day. I don't know.
I can see Finley holding 2 titles in the middle of this year. In all honesty,
here's the thing: whoever wins the New Japan Cup's not winning the world title.
No, because the Windy City Riot match is going to be a world title match.
I was convinced that could be a world title match, but right now, like I am from 100% to like 85% that it will be a world title match. But if you tell me it's going to be like a world title match, I'm fine. I
need it to be a world title match because I need Jon Moxley to eat a loss in New Japan for once. Like,
I need for this to be the same as well. And I was with you fully convinced up to about a week ago that was the direction and full stop. Right now, I'm at like 85% with that tinge of doubt that they will see the finish line and turn left.
You mentioned but we mentioned where things have been kind of done, halfway or with no conviction. It's interesting that the secondary title situation really hasn't been right since they got rid of the Intercontinental title for reasons that nobody understood in the first place. Because they had the Intercontinental title was a clear main event level, but secondary title to the IWGP title. The Never title was the BMF belt. That was the bruisers. They, if you were the baddest guy on the block if you had the Never title. You were a great wrestler if you had the Intercontinental title. You were the king of the mountain if you had the IWGP. There was a hierarchy to them in a way. And then since then, it's been kind of scattershot. And I think what people would like is just a little clarity as to what exactly these titles mean. And we didn't really get that because it was the U.S. title for a while, and then even that got muddy with the U.S. thing and the UK thing, and then it's just been weird with with that. Like they can't decide where these things fall into place. So,
well, I think there's a certain element of titles keep getting dropped into the company that no one asked for. Quite literally, nobody asked for a TV title, and nobody asked for, but at least the TV title's got an identity. I mean,
right.
The
Zach
identity is
Zach gave it one anyway.
the identity. Well,
now
the identity is the time limit. They haven't lived up to their conceptual identity of young guys and da 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 da.
Oh, that's dead and buried.
But the time limit is interesting, and that I think is great. I do wish it would be really easy, I think, in a company like New Japan that actually uses time limits to delineate these titles in a different way, right? I think you could say, okay, the TV title's 15 minutes, the never openweight title 20, and anyone can fight for it. Global 30. Sure, you can't get a global championship match done in 30. It's for naught, right? It's a draw.
Yeah.
World championship, either no time limit or 60, right? I mean, like it's that easy. It's that easy. Just do that. You could do that in any company. They should do that in AEW too, but their time limits are whack. So what do you want me to say? But like,
well, the AEW matches AEW matches only have time limits when they're doing a draw. Other than that, they don't have.
Well, they've gotten a little better about that. But in New Japan, like that's so clear to me that it's just so easy, right? Like it's just so easy that they could do it that way. And then that would tell you which one's more important, because in theory, as matches gets longer, they're more competitive, right? Therefore, a more competitive match means a little bit more, but like to me, I don't know. Sometimes this stuff's just so easy.
I think that's very smart.
But and sometimes, a long time ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when I started doing this stuff, it basically worked out that way, where your world championship or your heavyweight championship matches at the time were always going to be 30 plus. They were going to be and every now and then you get one that's 28 or 29, but it was going to go over 20. And then your IC titles typically were going to be under 30, but maybe over 20. Matches never went more than 15. Maybe a little bit over 15, but that was kind of their range. So like it was a clear delineation of what was what. And now it's just such a mess. There's so many belts. And again, some of them are so new, they don't have this lineage. You can't really harken back to anything. But the global belt's got a white strap. Therefore, it's sort of the spiritual successor to the IC. And we got to kind of run with it that way.
I always thought too that, with the TV title is open weight. And so, like this is one where I don't keep harping on this, but Hiromu transcending the junior division. He could be a good never open weight champion. He's the only junior that really goes over heavies. And he's done it a couple of times in the cup when they put juniors in the cup. And then the other side of that is I think Hiromu would be a very interesting TV champion someday, as somebody who could do those really fast paced
sprints,
15 sprint matches, the high speed title that Stardom has. So, he would be a great version of that, which is again why I was talking about why we need to make more juniors and all that. They're not getting rid of the junior heavyweight division. I just don't. They're just not going to do it. But there are ways to use those guys a little bit better than they have. So, what else? We want to talk about Okada and Jeremy, or what else do you want to?
We'll go through the matches that we got coming up for the next 2 days, and then I got a couple of slides of news and notes, and then we'll get out of here.
So the tour continues Friday. That's tomorrow morning in Yamanashi, and the 3 tournament matches there are Bolton Oleg against Hikuleo.
I'm
Callum
excited
Newman.
for this one.
What's that?
I'm excited for that one.
Oh yeah, I think we're all interested to see how that one turns out, because Newman and then Gabe Kidd will probably be a terrific match. Those two are going to be highly motivated to put on a good show. And then Shingo Takagi versus Yuya Uemura in a pretty intriguing matchup there, because I think, Chris, how many people have Shingo going a long way in this tournament?
That's a great question. What do I got here? Okay, so Shingo has the 3rd highest percentage to win at 14.18. He has about 79% of people picked him to go over Yuya. So that's pretty high too. It's up there for the first round.
I feel like he probably will. I'm leaning towards Shingo to go a long way in this one, actually.
I predicted him for the finals. He didn't bust my other bracket yet.
Do you think they bounce all what I like to call the Reiwa 4, right? Do you think they all get bounced in the first round?
No.
Suji?
I think Narita moves forward. I think Suji
Yeah.
moves forward.
Okay, so both of the guys in the bottom quadrant, you think get out of it? Okay,
I think that's possible. Yeah.
I think it was a miss.
I think they take the possibility of Taichi away from you, and they use Ren Narita to make you hate him more for it.
That sucks. But that's
I don't
what's
think we're
happening.
getting. I don't think we're getting Techers.
For the Heat, brother.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're getting it. Yeah.
I think it was a miss to not at least plant the seed of giving people the chance to, I guess, pick or envision all 4 of those guys making the Final Four, by putting them in different parts of the bracket. I thought that would have been at least a neat seed to plant, and I would have been harping on it as the thing that I wanted that I didn't think was going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, they keep doing this to these guys. They threw them all in the same bracket of the G1 just to make sure. Well, we're not pushing more than one of them, and then they didn't push
things have come out about who else was supposed to be in that block that gave it the old no.
Oh,
so,
what's that? Wait a minute. What's
someone we're probably going to talk about in a little bit who just
all right.
He's hanging around somewhere else now.
Okay, so in Hyogo on Sunday. Now we're off Saturday, so we have Friday show. We're off Saturday. Sunday. In
one
Hyogo,
of 3 days off on this whole tour.
A lot of shows to watch. ELP against Mikey Nichols. That'll probably be terrific. Taichi against Ren Narita. Danger zone here for the heel finish. And then Yota Tsuji against Jeff Cobb in a very intriguing match here. And you can make a case going either direction for this one. So what are the percentages of predictions for that one, Chris?
Cobb and Tsuji. Let's see.
Yeah.
Tsuji, 85% Tsuji.
Wow.
Which honestly, that shocked me because
that's a lot.
What
I would not have. I would go like 60-40. You know,
yeah, right. I thought. Well, shoot, I forget if it was 21 or 22. Cobb was the pick to win the tournament.
Yeah.
Of the 200 some odd brackets I got that year. So this year we're almost to 300, but 85% picked Tsuji to get out of the first round. 82% picked Tsuji to get out of the second round and into the quarters. And then he starts to fall off, but he does have the 4th highest percentage of people voting for him to win the tournament.
Wow. Fascinating. All right,
I think that's what people, so like the top 4 to win the tournament are Zach Sabre Jr., David Finley, Shingo, and then Tsuji. And then after that, it's everyone in the 2 to 4% range.
Wow. Okay, there you go. So then and Venkin just mentioned the way that the Cinderella tournament for Stardom starts on Saturday. So I'm just not going to sleep between now and the next show.
Let's jump to that real quick. I have that one here.
Oh yeah.
So that happens on March 10th. And our own Scott E Wrestling will be going live in about 40 minutes. So if you are enjoying the Japanese wrestling talk, after we're done, go get yourself some food, go take a walk the dog, whatever. Come right back to Fight Game Media, listen to Scott E Wrestling, talk all the Stardom.
It's going to be the moment right here. Julia defending the NJPW Strong Women's title against Stephanie Vaquer. And of course, CMLL is doing that all women's show at Arena Mexico on Friday in a big one. So it's a real renaissance in Mexican women's wrestling and CMLL lately. The last few years, Vaquer is at the forefront of it. This could be the moment, right? I mean, that title has to come off of Julia at some point, and Vaquer is probably the best person to get him into North America, and she doesn't have the visa problems that everybody else seems to. So that's good. Yeah, okay. And by the way, Monday in Ehime, we're going to see Sanada against Yoshihashi and Jack Perry versus Toru Yano. I think we're pretty confident who's going to win those two. And then Tuesday, also in Ehime, so two shows in Ehime, Goto against Chase Owens, Tangaloa against David Finlay. And then by the time we come back here next week, we'll also have seen Wednesday in Okayama, Evil against Bolton or Hikuleo, the winner of that one. And then the other match for Wednesday in Okayama is the winner of Newman and Kidd against the winner of Shingo and Uemura. So that's what we have coming up this week.
Quick news and notes. Matt Riddle and Bad Dude Tito had one of the best 5-minute matches you'll ever see on MLW that aired on NJPW World. You can find it there. There wasn't much to it, but for 5 minutes, they hit each other very, very hard, and these two knew the assignment. That is on MLW. You guys got anything to add on that one?
Just that I love that Bad Dude Tito is getting some sort of opportunity. That dude is,
absolutely.
He's got it. He's got it together. And yeah, I watched this because it was 5 minutes, and it's great. It's great 5 minutes. I love a sprint.
Like I don't think you'll find many 5-minute matches that you'll enjoy.
I don't really want to see Matt Riddle matches that are longer than 5 to
Agreed.
8 minutes. He's good at that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You understood the assignment to both of them.
There you go.
We had Kingston versus Bryan Danielson at Revolution this past weekend. A tremendous match. I don't know if you guys are star people, but it was a lot of stars on this match. Great strong style match. Did you guys catch it at all?
I watched it.
Okay.
I'm not a star guy. I enjoyed it.
I just like all the stars. I don't give a specific.
Yeah, I'm not a Kingston guy. I think I've talked about that publicly. Like I think he's fine. But I'm not I don't dote over everything Eddie Kingston does. Every now and then he hits real hard. Danielson's the best to ever do it. I think he's at least in the conversation as the best to ever do it. I would have loved Bryan Danielson NJPW strong champion. But the card,
you have a plan in mind, which
is I have a lot to say about that. Well, if that ends up happening, I'm gonna.
There's a lot to unpack, but the implication that we are getting to, everybody, is that Kazuchika Okada officially joined All Elite Wrestling, and he joined as a member of the Elite. The angle that introduced it was Eddie Kingston confronting the Young Bucks, and then Kazuchika Okada coming down, turning on Eddie Kingston, giving him a Rainmaker, and then leaning over him and gesturing for his belt. So you can draw the implication. We are getting Eddie Kingston versus Kazuchika Okada for the Continental Classic belt, a.k.a. the New Japan Strong belt, along with the Ring of Honor belt, a.k.a. the Continental Championship belt. And there's a lot to think about this, but if you're putting Okada in this match, you don't put him in this match to lose.
Yeah, no, it's true. And so just to review, everybody, the one of the most famous IWGP champions in history is probably about to be the NJPW Strong Champion, and that's the angle coming up.
Breaks every rule of New Japan booking I've ever heard, because Kazuchika Okada famously has only ever fought for the top title in New Japan. And the only time he ever challenged for a singles title that wasn't the top title is when it was connected to the top title, when it was the double gold dash situation.
Him having the never open weight 6-man titles was so weird at the time, but it was so great once he actually had it.
Exactly. But for singles titles, the only title he ever has gone after in the New Japan universe was the IWGP World Heavyweight or the IWGP Heavyweight title. So
and just to mention, like, that whole thing with the 2-belt one night tournament thing, Okada was vocal about not particularly wanting the Intercontinental title. It was all about the IWGP.
He basically said, okay, if I win that, I'm just going to vacate it and y'all can have a tournament or do whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
So
he's never cared about it.
He hasn't cared about it. He's never cared about any of the other secondary titles in New Japan. He never went after him, which is why I thought it was such a good thing that Kazuchika Okada left. I think he was taking up space at the top of the card, and he had nowhere. He had nothing else to do. So he can't be champion forever. So yeah, go do 3-5 years in AEW, maybe come back, maybe never come back. I don't know. But I thought I was vocal about it then. I still think it's great. And I think what AEW did with Okada in his debut was excellent and surprising. So very cool. But if this man ends up the NJPW Strong champion, if that's not an avenue for them to retire that championship, I might have feelings about it.
if he wins it and then goes ahead and runs the Continental Classic, runs the table on it next year, and it basically, as I told Steven off the air, if it's basically another version of MJF's Diamond Ring, and he just has this belt in perpetuity and no one ever beats him for it, I'm fine with that. I'm really okay with that. It can just be his belt and just give it to him and let him, no one can ever beat him for it.
I mean, I think he's going to lose more in AEW than he ever did in New Japan. You have to. It's part of the American TV thing, right? Yeah. But they'll protect the hell out of him for a while. So he's going to win that belt, and I'm going to have feelings about it. And I'm going to send some banger tweets, and I'm going to do some numbers on it.
Are you excited for the day that Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada are fighting for the Continental Classic belt?
Sure, why not? I mean, Kenny's done all sorts of stuff. I mean, he got his start with all.
It feels like that could be something very real that we are heading towards.
Kenny
and
did.
It will end up being something that we talk about on a New Japan podcast.
Kenny did the steps up. So like Kenny going for all sorts of different titles doesn't kind of break my perception of his character. Listen, it's been 5 years or so, 5-6 years since that match happened. Let's run it back. Put that match in Wembley if Kenny's healthy. Like, let's go. I mean, why not?
Yeah, that's fine. And there are a lot of matches in AEW that could work for Okada. I mean, eventually, like Hangman Page. When with Hangman Page, I know they met up in New Japan, but not this Hangman Page. The totally different guy at this point. So that could work. And there are a lot of things, and there are matches. It has been long enough that you could go back to that. To Kenny, even Jay White wouldn't feel terrible, like right now, even though that's still not too long, but it's long enough that I think we'd be happy to see it again. Those matches were always great. So, there's a lot of avenues for him there. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But you're right. A couple of things. He's weekly episodic television is a whole new animal for him, and I think we're going to see him lose a lot more just because we don't. New Japan. You saw him wrestle in preview tags, which is something that's not particularly consequential in that sense. And he wasn't always involved in the fall in those matches and things. AEW, he's probably going to be wrestling a lot more singles matches. You're right. They're going to protect the hell out of him.
Yeah.
But if you think this is going to be, I'm just talking about a viewer at home thinks that this is going to be Okada going undefeated for years in AEW, that's not the way this is going to roll.
Well, the wild thing is Okada's overall career record in New Japan is under 500 because of all.
Yeah, because they lose so many of those previews. Yeah, he loses all those tags.
Yeah, but he never took those falls. He was Makabe.
Yeah, no, that's a different thing.
All right, we got one last bit of business here on my end, unless you guys do. We got
I got one more small thing, but go ahead with yours because mine will finish dead last. Okay. Well, I saw something as I was flipping around New NJPW World that I think is worth mentioning. A video came up, and you know how they've been adding old stuff from the past slowly. Some things are starting to come up. I came across something that I thought was a kick. They had Big Fight Series 1990, and it was Masa Saito and a very young Shinya Hashimoto in a tag match against Bam Bam Bigelow and the Punisher Dice Morgan. Do you know who the Punisher Dice Morgan was, Jeremy?
I don't.
The Undertaker before he was the Undertaker.
Hell yes.
The Undertaker. Mark Calloway had a very brief little tour with New Japan in 1990 before he debuted at the Survivor Series. A little bit between Mean Mark Callis in WCW and
a little bit of a chapter break in his American career.
A little bit. So he went over there, and if you're interested in seeing the Undertaker before he was the Undertaker in a New Japan ring, that is there. Bam Bam and the Punisher Dice Morgan against Saito and Shinya Hashimoto, and also fun to see Shinya Hashimoto looking like a little kid too. I mean, he was a kind of a Muppet-faced guy that had a real youthful look to him, very different than the BMF Shinya Hashimoto that would come with the original Three Musketeers not long after. So anyway, I just found that on there and kind of popped a little bit, and I thought, some people might want to go see the Undertaker before he was the Undertaker there.
I do like that. One last thing, Chris Samsa put out some infographic earlier today, and this is his information from his tweet. You can find him at the Chris Samsa at Twitter and on Blue Sky. But Chris, if you want to run down all the Best of Super Juniors information that you think is valuable for our listeners and watchers, please take the floor.
Well, I think I think what's worth saying is that the tournament begins on Saturday, May 11th and ends at Dominion this year. So usually or very frequently the Dominion show is where the title match coming out of Best of Super Juniors comes from or occurs. This year it will be the finals at Dominion. So setting up Dominion to at least have one great big junior match that will not involve the title, which probably means it will not involve Show, because I don't see a lot of space for Show to lose the title between now and May 11th. I guess it could happen. Something odd could happen there, but I think, in all likelihood, Show is holding that title through the tournament. So a little bit more of a spaced out tournament than, say, the New Japan Cup, where we have 12 events in 15 days. We've got 14 events in 30 days, which is a much nicer spread for someone like, I don't know, me, who has to like prep for all the shows. So I'm looking forward to that. But I would bet a lot of these shows are going to have like 10 tournament matches on them. So Best Super Junior season is great though. And this, it honestly should make it a little bit easier for people to keep up, which I'm into.
Yeah. I think the last 2 years I was in Vegas and the semifinals and the finals happened the same like 2 days. It's double or nothing. And while it was incredibly fun to watch it in Vegas, it was a giant pain in the ass. And the fact that they have spread it out a little bit makes me it's a relief for me.
Yeah, and 4 Corkin Hall shows on the whole tour, which the Corkin Best of Super Juniors shows are
so
always great. So looking forward to all 4 of those. One of those is the semifinals there at the tail end of the kind of the core of the tournament. So yeah, I mean, it's a great season. I think we'll see a pretty significant field. Maybe it's 2 blocks of 10 again. I think that there's space for that, especially because Super Juniors, they do often do the full card of tournament matches. So, and they're kind of a slog to get through sort of, but they're also really fun because everything's got some stakes. So
once you're invested and the stories start to kind of become clear, that's when the Super Junior starts to come alive.
And that tournament is it's got the highest floor, I think, of any of the New Japan tournaments.
Yeah.
I think the ceiling for the G1 is obviously higher. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we'll see who's in, right? Well, and hopefully a big CMLL involvement, especially if those guys still can't come to the US.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for that too. And there's some really good talents in CMLL that could really mesh well into this thing. I imagine we'll see Teton.
You got to figure.
Yeah, but I mean, beyond that, I would like to see a couple more. I mean, unfortunately, Wato's spot is open because Wato's injured, so that's one. There's some spot. Any thoughts on any thoughts or guesses, Chris, on who else from afar might come into this thing?
I don't know. I do figure we'll see some AEW involvement there too, because I do think that they're starting to see the value in the mini excursion, or and I think maybe like someone
a Dante Martin kind of
thing. Exactly. And I think that he's kind of the guy that he's the type of guy you'd want to send, or Action Andretti, something like that. Like someone
Wheeler finally send Wheeler over there.
And he's involved with that Blackpool Combat Club, and the thing is about a month-long tour. That's a long time to be out.
He was injured though, so he's been out of the equation anyway.
It's a really long tour, but there are some gaps that maybe there's if they've got single block nights and there's some gaps, then maybe someone could get home for 8 to 10 days.
Here's the thing: when you have Okada and Mercedes and all these new people that come in, I'm sorry, there isn't room on the pay-per-view of Double or Nothing for the Dante Martins and all those guys. So like there's a lot more mouths to feed all of a sudden. So there might be room in the middle for some of the people that get squeezed out.
Someone who I would love to see do that tournament and actually have a run with it would be Rocky Romero.
Yeah.
I think, he's gotten way back into like the actual wrestling side of his pro wrestling. He's the invisible string in the pro wrestling industry.
Absolutely.
Like, but he's had such a good run in CMLL. And I know one of his like life's goals is to hold the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship under his own name. So that would be a nice story to tell. And he can go and be a Rudo and have a good time. I think his character work is really great right now. So if he's got the time and the space, and most of his jobs are just email jobs anyway, right? So like he can make it work. I think that would be
I can get behind that totally.
Addition. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Jeremy, anything else before we wrap this one up?
No, let's just get Samsa his plugs, and we'll plug the 5-Star Joshi Show one time and get out of here.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at the Chris Samsa. Of course, right now, most of my content is based around the New Japan Cup and the Sport of Pro Wrestling New Japan Cup Bracket Challenge. So if you happen to get into that bracket challenge, if you're one of the almost 300 people who did that, keep up with me on Twitter there, or check sportofprowrestling.com for the standings. There are still 8 perfect brackets. Just
good
8.
for them.
And good for them. Good for them for making the bold choices. Shout out to Rambo and Slam Pig, who I know listens to like everything New Japan related.
Rambo and Slam Pig, is he perfect?
He's perfect. So shout out to him. There, like I said, there are 7 others, but that was the name that I recognized. So
wow, you don't forget
get your internet clout. I know all about it. It's fun.
take it
and
take
run.
it and run with it. Even in this early stage of the tournament, run with it. But otherwise, yeah, that's where you can find me. And you know, I try to keep up on all things New Japan, and I dip my toes in other places too.
Chris,
All
thanks
right.
for everything that you do for the New Japan community and all
Wow.
honesty.
You're too kind. Thank you. Thanks for
And
having
we really
me.
appreciate you coming on the show. It's always a lot of fun to have you here to kick around ideas, to talk about things like your statistical analysis. And
A lot of people enjoyed it, apparently.
we're just really proud you're a friend of the show, and we're glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
All right.
you're a draw, my friend. Yeah, 5-star Joshi show in a half hour. Scotty Wrestling talking all the stardom. Please like, subscribe, click, share. Our show, their show, the whole deal. Steven, get us out of here.
All right. With that in mind, thank you once again for listening to, watching, Speaking of Strong Style. And we'll be back again a week from today to go over all these shows that are coming up with the New Japan Cup. So for Jeremy, for Chris, I'm Steven. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again real soon.